Yo, what's good, y'all? I know a lot of y'all seen the short, and a lot of y'all been asking me the sauce for the sniper build I made. This is a pretty fun build. I'm gonna go piece by piece on why I'm using what I'm using, and but just before I go into that, I just want to say that this build is definitely a better build for co-op. I do think you can solo some bosses with it, Zaruk Roar and Lapis, for sure. But this build is not great on against everything. This is a very one-trick pony kind of build, and it shines in co-op. It really shines in co-op. I'm not gonna lie too. There are other builds you can easily use that are gonna outshine in damage and easier playstyle. But I do think this build is fun. I had a lot of fun with using it on stream. You guys kind of helped me build it on stream, and but I did fine tune it a little bit. But yeah, I just kind of made this build to just prove that snipers are viable. They are not the best weapon in the game, but I do think these weapons can be used, and you can do a lot of damage. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start with the weapons. Is the bloodsucker I'm using because just to get more out of my ammo. If you conflict the corrosion debuff, it drops their defense by a lot. So I'll be going from 600 damage per critical shot to like 1900. So I'm getting more out of my ammo. Snipers don't have that much ammo. Plus, it also helps my teammates get more damage. I think you could really replace this with any acid weapon if you want, but I'm just going with these just for the memory use, and this one shoots an acid cloud. So if they're sitting in acid, it kind of just it lingers over the Orochis, but you can go with any of the corrosion weapons. The impulses I'm using because they're kind of just the best in terms of like jack of all trade. You can do a couple of shots before you have to reload. The reload time's not bad. But what you're really getting out of the impulses compared to the other snipers is that critical. Hold up, let me show you guys that critical. The weak point exploit, actually. The weak point exploit is at 300. The other closest sniper to that, I think, is the fail knots at 200. Don't sleep on the fail knots. I believe these hit almost as hard as the impulsors. They generally do hit harder than the impulsors, but the weak spot damage, because of how the impulsors work, you're gonna hit just as hard, and they have about the same amount of ammo. But again, I recommend the impulses just because they're easier to use and they look cooler. I mean, look at them. But I do think the fail knots with max reload speed might out damage the impulses. If I'm being honest, I wouldn't sleep on these. I think you could use any of the snipers and do pretty good damage, but I don't think they're gonna do better than the fail knots or the impulses. I'm rocking two of them just because of ammo. I definitely think you should try to get two if possible. I don't think there's a point to just doing one. But you can do whatever you want at the end of the day. I'm also using the bow as another weapon, mostly for the flinch. You don't ever want to be close with this build, so a ranged high flinch weapon, I think, is just the go-to. And the auxiliary, I'm using ammo because snipers do not have any ammo. So I got a lucky A-graded one, reserve magazine 2, that kind of busts my two-handed firearms by 1.66. Mad memory consumption. The worst thing about the impulses is the memory is horrible. So I have a memory consumption on level 3 on both of them. The memory it takes up is a lot. I do think the Rakshasa helmet, Rakshasa, however you say that, is the best helmet to use for the lock-on range. Rakshasa has the best lock-on range in the game. It doesn't have the best shooting performance, but the lock-on range is pretty much at a B level. It's pretty much maxed out to where the critical range for the impulses are. The critical range for the impulses are 155 through 173. So when I'm about at my max lock-on range limit, Gemini. What was I saying? When I'm back at when I'm like at my max lock on range, that's when I know I'm going to be doing the critical damage with the impulses. The critical range is very important for snipers because you're going to be doing double the damage when you're in that critical range. I'm using the Palace armor literally just for memory. You see the memory capacity level 3s on it. Literally just using it for memory. I don't really care about the stats. I'm literally just using this for memory. If you could look at something, if you can get more memory out of something else, I'd probably use that. But I don't really care about the speed. I'm not going to be in the boss's face at all if I can help it. So I don't really care about aerial speed because I'm going to be on the ground shooting. I'm using the meter arms because they have the best shooting accuracy in the game. The eclipsXe arms are the second best, and they provide more VP. But I don't really care about that because, again, I'm trying not to take too many hits. So I'm pretty much just going to be using the meter arms. You can use the eclipsXe. The eclipsXe also have a lot more memory, so they give you a lot more playroom to kind of play around with other weapons. But that's really entirely up to you. That's what I was using before I got the meter arms. Now, I'm using the Primus Pilot's legs. Again, I think these legs are the best legs in the game. I do think ground speed is very important because you want to be able to get to the critical range as fast as possible. And just the femto capacity, the VP. Yeah, you lose out on defense, but again, we're not trying to be in the enemy's face too much or taking hits. The critical range is very far. And actually, another problem with snipers is that the critical range is so far that a lot of arenas aren't even big enough for you to really maximize on the critical range. So again, this build is really only for certain bosses that are really going to see the damage on. But let's go ahead and kind of show you guys kind of my play style. This thing's not moving, of course, so of course it's not as easy, but I already got the weak point exposed. And also too, in co-op, I definitely recommend letting your friends try to get aggro before you kind of like try to get range, or focus on damage. But definitely start off by like inflicting the acid damage and getting that debuff for your teammates. And then I use blow until he flinches, and then as he flinch him, you want to start heading back to the critical range. Then you pull out your impulses. We got the weak point exposed. Bam. 1725. I have a 1600. Your normal damage is gonna be like 1600. I don't know why I did 17 there. I do have a damage increase item buff going on right now, but I didn't really see too much of a difference when I tested it earlier. Again, too, if another teammate is using corrosive, you definitely want to try to keep that on them. What's cool about the corrosive damage is like once he's corrosive, you don't really need to like worry about the stun, especially if the weak spot's exposed. Oh, the horrible shot. The corrosive is not lasting that long for some reason. I don't know why. Normally it lasts for at least for a couple shots. Is he immune to it now? I can't even see his face. Is it glitched? There we go. 2000, baby. Usually the corrosive debuff lasts longer, but I also feel like you shoot better if you stand still and then hold the trigger down for a second. If you just start like free aiming, well, now he's hitting every shot. I swear, like I don't be hitting every shot. Again, this is very like, it's very fun way to play. I was having a lot of fun with it, but it's definitely not like, there's easier ways to get this damage. But look how far I am from him too. Again, most of the arenas are not this big, or they're just this big. So you're not going to be able to get this critical range very often. And if you're not hitting the weak spot at critical range, you're literally doing half the damage. And again, I don't know if it's worth it at half the damage. I mean, you're doing 800. It's not bad, but again, you could do the same thing with the pistol. The pistols hit for 700. So, and they have a faster fire rate. But yeah, it's a fun style, but this is the build. I definitely recommend it if you're doing co-op. It is fun. I think snipers are viable. I do think you can make this hit a lot harder. I wouldn't be surprised if you can get numbers to like 2,500 or 3,000 a shot. Again, though, there's a lot of easier ways to get big numbers a lot faster. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if you guys want any other builds. I'm messing with a little wonky stuff that I don't see people using a lot. I think the next thing I want to do is I want to try to do a grab build. I think that's the next thing I'm doing, a grab build. But wish me luck. You guys be safe. Peace.